Hello everyone, welcome to another Daily Muppet. I thought it might be a good time to do a video because there is a lot of confusing information out there with regards to, with regards to the takeover. We've obviously passed the deadline now and gotten a few reports. I want to explain a couple of things because there's a lot of stuff that is very confusing and a lot of things that I think people are misunderstanding with any of the bids, Qatar's, all of it. So I wanted just to explain it because it's always good to understand what is actually going on. Give me just a minute here. Okay, so let's start with Qatar and Sir Jim Ratcliffe because there's some confusion about what their bids mean. That most of it was clarified, but I think people need to understand, and I'll try to explain this in really simple terms. Manchester United have two types of shares. Number one are called Class A shares. These are shares that you could go buy right now on the stock market. These are when people are looking at like the share price and the graphs of the stock going up. That's Class A. Now what's confusing is that Class A sound like it would be better than Class B, but it's not. Class A are just the public shares that people can buy that are trading somewhere around $27 per share. That's determined right now just by the market value, by interest. When people are interested, they buy the shares, the value goes up. Essentially, it's inflated right now because of the takeover. People are excited about it. The other class of shares are Class B shares. Class B shares, there's a lot more of. They have 10 times the voting power, and they're what the Glazers own. They own 97% of them. There's a very small percentage of them that are owned by other people, including like Ed Woodward still owns like 0.5% or something like that. Those are the shares that matter. Those are the shares that provide you with a controlling interest in the club. So when the offers come in from Qatar or let's see here. When the offers come in from, say, Qatar or from Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the offers that are in there now, when Jim Ratcliffe says it's for majority ownership, what was clarified was it's to buy the Glazers' stake. That's not 100% of the club. It would be about 100% of the controlling interest in the club, which is those Class B shares, but it's not 100% of the club because it's only 67% of the shares. 67% are Class B, 33% are the Class A ones that, again, as I mentioned, are on the market, that you could go buy right now, that a lot of fans own, that people own, etc. So there's no real point in buying those Class A shares. You'd have to pay an extra billions of dollars right now to buy out those Class A shares. They don't provide you with any benefit, so there's no reason to buy them, and nobody would likely be buying them. But to give you an example, this is where the wording's a little confusing because Sir Jim Ratcliffe said buy a majority of the shares, a majority share. Qatar said 100%. It's likely they both mean the exact same thing. Because if Qatar's offer was for 100% and it was, say, $5 billion, right? Then realize that's only 3.4, what's 67%? 5 billion times 67. That's only a 3.3 billion offer to the Glazers. I just want to make that very, very clear and understood. If Qatar's offer was 5 billion euros, 4.5 billion pounds, and it was for 100% actually of the club, that would mean Class A shares as well, then it would only give the Glazers 3.3 billion euros. So if Jim Ratcliffe was offering 4 billion for a majority ownership, which is just the Class B shares, 67%, he'd actually be offering the Glazers more money, and it would be a better offer. I don't think that's true. So I don't want to see comments, responses saying, oh, it's anti-Qatar. Quite the opposite. If anyone is saying that Qatar has offered £4.5 billion for 100%, that means 100%. That's a worse offer than Jim Ratcliffe's offer of $4 billion for the majority stakeholder share of 67% of the Class B shares. This might be a little confusing. My point is, both parties are likely simply making an offer for the shares the Glazers are selling because the Rain Group is not administering the sale of the public shares. There's different laws in different countries, but because Manchester United is registered in the Cayman Islands, you do not have to buy the other shares when you buy the majority of the club. You do not have to buy it at the same price, and it doesn't all have to be connected. So I'm trying to make that really clear. I believe what Qatar is saying is they're doing the same thing as Jim, offering £4.5 billion or whatever the offer is, reported by Keegan. I think it's £4.5 billion for the Glazers' share of the club, which is all the control. It's all that matters. Jim Ratcliffe's offering the same thing. If one was trying to say that the Qatar was offering 100%, that would actually be a worse offer. Makes sense? So I don't think that's the case. I think they're both buying the same thing because the Rain Group are not administering the sale of the Class A shares. They're administering the sale of the Class B shares that the Glazers control. Okay? So trying to clear that up. Both offers would appear to be for the same stake in the club, which is the controlling Class B shares of the club. Now, moving forward from that, there's a report that has just come out which says that Elliott Group, who had owned AC Milan, their hedge fund, just money, have launched a bid. Now, I want to make, again, this very clear from reading it, what it actually means. This group have not made a bid to buy the club. This group has made it public that they are willing to offer money to someone that is bidding. So let's say, I just use a random name, just for example. Let's say John Joe's is coming in and trying to buy the club, but maybe he doesn't want to pay the full price. Maybe he doesn't want to give $5 billion right now himself. Elliott Group might say, okay, we'll give you $500 million. We want a 10% stake in the club. That's all. That's what Elliott Group are offering. And all that means is they're offering a little bit of funding to someone who is trying to make the bid. Why are they doing that? It's so 5-10 years down the road, they can sell it and believe that it's going to be worth more. It's an investment opportunity for them, right? It's ultimately not super meaningless. I see a lot of people panicking or worrying about Elliott Group ran AC Milan badly. I believe that's true. I don't think they're a good group. I don't think they're the right people to own Manchester United. However, it has to be said because, again, I'm trying to bring some level-headedness, some calm, and not panic to the situation. Anybody offering some money for a 10%, 15% stake in the club, it doesn't really matter. They're going to have no control over the club. They're not going to be making decisions. They're not going to be running the club. They're simply providing financing. The positive is someone like that coming in potentially could finance the stadium in a debt-free manner. Example, let's say Jim Ratcliffe buys the club for $5 billion and he owns the 100% of the Glazers' stake, which is the controlling influence. He owns all the control and he buys the club. If he sold 15% of it to someone like Elliott Group for money, that money gets reinvested if that's what he wanted to do. Take that money, build the stadium, there's no debt. Stadium is built debt-free. That's one of the possibilities of a group accepting something like this, is using funding from someone else to build the stadium in a debt-free manner in exchange for equity. That's actually what the Glazers were trying to do, except they were going to take the money out of the club, so it was ultimately meaningless. Now, what's very funny about this, actually, is Elliott Group have essentially said, we're willing to give money. We'll take money we'll give you money for a minority stake in the club, but not to the Glazers. And that's the point. That's why a minority sale has never been up to task. Nobody wants to give the Glazers any money. Elliott is not saying they'll give the Glazers money. They're saying they'll give someone else who is bidding money to assist in their bid. So I find that very funny because nobody wants to say, hey, Glazers, yeah, we'll give you money for 10% of the club, but they're willing to pay other people for 10% of the club. And that's just the lack of confidence that anybody has in the Glazers. So it's very, very funny. What this also implies, just to be clear, is, and I want to explain this too, is that there are other bids on the table. Another report from BBC came out saying there are still multiple American offers expected. Now, you might say the deadline is passed. Why are there no offers from the Americans or other groups or Saudi or anyone like that? Again, to make this very clear, nobody has to be public. Nobody has to publish their bids. They're not even bids at this point, essentially. They're statements of intent. There may well be 2, 3, 4, 5 other offers on the table. Nobody has to publish it. And one of the reasons for this is generally, for example, Qatar is a private thing. They're not a publicly traded company, so they can be public and say whatever they want. Ineos is not publicly traded. They can say whatever they want. It doesn't affect share price. When you're buying something, when a business buys something, generally it drops their shares when they go public about buying something, and the business being bought, their shares go up. It's an equal and opposite reaction generally. So let's say one public entity is trying to buy another public entity. The buyer's shares usually drop because they're about to spend a lot of money. There's more risk, while the seller's shares go up. So any party that's publicly traded doesn't want to go public because it will reduce their share price of their business in the short term. So if there are multiple groups, for example, the ones I listed out, HBSE and Oaktree, Pagliuca, Bain Capital, those are publicly traded entities. Sorry, not Bain Capital, but their partners. Some of their partners involved might be publicly traded. And if they're publicly traded, they won't want to be public. Anyway, I'm not trying to make this all too complicated. I'm just trying to explain. To summarize it all, it's likely there's other offers than the ones that we know of from Jim Ratcliffe and Qatar. Elliott Group are not trying to give Glazers money for a minority stake. They're trying to buy in on someone else's offer, and they may just be advertising that, or they may already have an offer they're working with that isn't public. Both Qatar and Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bids are for the controlling interest of Manchester United. It's not 100% clear, because Qatar used the words 100%, that they don't mean all the shares. But what I'm saying is, if they did mean all the shares, it would make their offer worse than Jim Ratcliffe's in the eyes of the Glazers. So I don't think that's the case. I believe the offers are for the same stake. And we should expect to see more bids come after the deadline, because the deadline isn't really real, and now it's going to go to the next rounds where people are they make more detailed offers. They dig into the finances of the club. They really dig into the debt. They dig into the plans for the stadium. They're going to see that now. The Glazers already made those plans for the stadium and got research on it. Now the buyers are going to look into that and see what that would entail, what that would mean. And then following this, more detailed bids will be made. But because there's interest and valid offers, the Positive Rain Group have basically put out saying, we believe the club will be sold and we're going to push ahead quick because there are valid buyers. So either way, it's good news on the front of the Glazers leaving Manchester United. I hope this made sense and tried to clear some things up. It is very complicated, some of it in terms of the legalese, and some of the things I said are not 100% accurate from a legal standpoint, but they are. I'm trying to simplify it into a manner that's easy to understand, because the complications of how the shares work is very confusing and different in different countries as well, and that's where it can get really confusing. So thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. I'll make these videos regularly. I mean, I usually make them somewhat regularly, but like if big news comes out later today, I'll make another video. Just to try to explain everything that's going on at the moment. But make sure to follow closely. I really am just trying to pass along and relay the information on this. I obviously have my own opinions, but I think I've been pretty unbiased in relaying the information, especially on Twitter and things like that, just trying to provide factually what's going on there. So appreciate most of the people who are being reasonable and just listening and reading and watching and things like that. Thank you for watching. I'll see y'all later.